it's more about the team effort for me. I mean, there's no way that Todd Knight goes in the Arkansas Sports Hall of Fame if I don't have a bunch of dedicated players and coaches around me for years and years and years. And what I've always tried to do is just have an environment that those guys could grow, give those guys ownership in the program, and from players and coaches, and have an environment that they love to work in. And
welcome to this week's episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. This week, we sit down with Ouachita Baptist head coach Todd Knight. In this episode, Coach Knight looks back on his coaching journey from the moment he discovered his passion for the game to his 25-year tenure as head coach at Ouachita Baptist. He also talks about the early opportunities that helped him grow and the impact of having great assistant coaches along the way. But first, a word from CoachComm.
Deuce left, check with me. If they're in quarters match, we're going to Pittsburgh or Ohio.
They're in zero.
Let's go Hippo, Seattle, wide choice. If we call the protection right, it's 6.
When a play call is the difference between winning and losing, your headset choice could be your most important decision. When the call counts, CoachComm is the only choice for clear, dependable communication. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
We got it, guys. Good job.
Follow Inside the Headset on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to our YouTube channel for exclusive content. If you enjoy this episode, please give it a like and leave a review. It really helps others discover the show. We drop new episodes each week, so hit that follow button and never miss a moment. Now, let's get inside the headset with Coach Knight.
Coach Knight, what's going on? How you doing?
Doing great. Appreciate you guys having me.
Absolutely. Well, this has been one I've been looking forward to. I know I've ran into you over the years at the convention with your AFCA involvement and, obviously winning multiple regional coach of the year awards and more. It's my pleasure to kind of hop on and dive into your career. So let's do that.
You bet.
All right. So the first thing we always start the podcast off with is, when did you know you wanted to be a part of this great profession?
Yeah, probably pretty early. I played for 2 really outstanding high school football coaches that really were impactful for me. And being around those guys, learning the game, but also learning what, the total man was. And to be completely honest with you, it was probably my sophomore year in college. Now, this is going to show my age a little bit, but I was at an FCA event in northwestern Louisiana. A guy by the name of Pat Tilley was speaking. And Pat Tilley, way back in the day, he's the first one that wore him and Billy White Shoes Johnson wore those white shoes, and all that was so cool. But man, he had such a great testimony about how his faith had influenced his football. And for me, it's, the old coaching profession is about growing the total man, the mental, the physical, the spiritual. And, when I heard that in his testimony down there in Northwest Louisiana all those years ago, I thought, man, this is something that, I just really feel like the Lord was pulling me to make this my profession and better live through my faith and coach. Just what a great opportunity. So those 2 times, my high school years, about my sophomore year, and then my sophomore year of college, being at that Fellowship of Christian Athletes event and seeing what it was all about. And those kind of things probably were the biggest pull for me.
Yeah, I think it's interesting anytime you kind of know early enough that in high school you're somewhat thinking about it. I guess when you go and have that college plan experience, how do you kind of decide which level, which path that you want to go? Obviously, you've been college kind of through and through, but did the high school ranks ever interest you at all?
Oh, you bet. I got a degree in education and I went on the block and did the student teaching and all those things that you do. But, I just enjoyed the relationship so much of the guys that were, 18 to 22, 24 when I was a player. I just really felt like that's the level that I wanted to invest in, in people. But now I can tell you this, it doesn't matter what level you coach. Mm-hmm. You got a chance to be impactful. And it was never really about levels to me. It was more about impact and what age I enjoyed being around. Yeah. And so for me, it was that college age guy that really attracted me.
And so your sophomore year, you go to this FCA event, kind of had that epiphany that, hey, for sure, this is what I want to do. Did you go back and let your coaches know that you had that interest to kind of maybe start planting that seed, or did you really start exploring after you graduated?
No, I did. Especially that junior year when I knew my football career was getting close. Yeah. Even back in the day, we were writing letters and trying to figure out where, the possibility of a GA job would be, because, the master's degree back then was important too, because a lot of these jobs, 30 years ago, you had to teach,
right.
and that's kind of a crazy story too. I might get into in a minute, but I knew I needed a master's degree. I knew that I wanted the GA, and I knew that if I could GA, it probably would help determine, where I wanted to be, high school, college. Did I want to work for the NFL? Things like that. So, those things were critical trying to get that GA job.
Yeah. And so, hopefully it's gotten easier. I obviously hadn't done this in a long time myself as a coach, but I know when I was coaching, the hardest thing to do was kind of kick in that door, just to get started, get your name out there that you want to be part of this profession. How did it go down for you to end up in that first opportunity back in '86 as the GA there at Delta State?
Well, the head coach, his name was Red Parker, and of course, coach he's passed on, but what a great coach. He'd been the head coach at Clemson. He'd been at the Citadel. He'd been in a lot of places and just an outstanding record. And he was an Arkansan. Even though I was born in Texas, I was pretty much raised in Arkansas.
Okay.
So there was an Arkansas connection with Coach Parker. And I really wanted to learn from him. And I recruited him a lot harder than he did me. So I really got it down to the point where he couldn't say no. I just bugged him until he said, yeah, you can come. You may have to volunteer, whatever it is. But just wanted that opportunity with him because I felt like he was such a great coach.
And so you make the transition from player to coach. Obviously, you've had a tremendous career, so you found a way to be successful in this thing. But what was kind of the big eye-opening thing as you stepped into that coaching role, especially as a support staff, position as a graduate assistant?
Yeah, I think the things that were the most eye-opening for me were the people that I worked for. I started out with Red Parker. After that, I went to UTEP with a guy by the name of David Lee, who ended up having a wonderful NFL career, one of the greatest coaches I've ever been around, great fundamental coach, quarterback coach. Coach Parker was a great schemer and a great coach as well. And being around those guys, and then Buddy Bob Benson, the guy I played for in college, really taught me what it meant to run a program. And Coach Lee was intentional about his faith. He never was embarrassed about his faith. He never was embarrassed that, hey, this is bigger than football. This is life skills. This is trying to teach manhood. So, I feel like I was very fortunate that I learned from some of the best, not just because of what they did schematically, but how they ran a program and how they were intentional with the players. They invested in the players, and I knew at an early age that, if you don't care about them, and you don't show them that you care about them, I don't know how much you can get out of them. And not that you would do it for that point, but man, just the relationships and things that I've been through over 30-something years of coaching with the players is pretty fantastic. And so I'm thankful for those experiences under those great head coaches.
Well, I've been doing this podcast thing for a while, and some of the head coaches I've talked about, they talk about watching coaches and, seeing them get promotions within programs. Sometimes that's a tell on what kind of coach that they are. And you had the opportunity to show up as a GA at Delta State and also get promoted to kind of a full-time role there in 88 and 89. First of all, it was hard for me to actually find out what positions that you were coaching at that stop. So fill me in on that, number one. But number two, how were you able to go and really, make a name for yourself and be promoted from within the staff there as a GA?
Well, believe it or not, athletic directors had some input in this as well. But as far as what I coached, my first year at Delta State as a graduate assistant, I was with the defensive line. Okay. Then my second year, I ended up with a guy named Joe Wickline. Joe Wickline was the offensive line coach, and Joe was one of the greatest line coaches to coach the game. I mean, he's a phenomenal coach and motivator. So, I had a year under Joe, and then when Coach Parker and Joe left, they went to Ole Miss. Coach Parker went over there to be the offensive coordinator. Joe went as line coach. I got my chance to stay at Delta State. So my first 2 full-time years there, I was the offensive line coach. I mean, I probably wasn't ready, but I'd been trained by one of the best with Joe Wickline. So I did that for 2 years. And then at the end of that, when I did go to UTEP, I started out as really the fullback coach in the old flex bone with David Lee, and went from there to tight ends and tackles with another great line coach at UTEP as well. So coached running backs, coached offensive line, did several things there at UTEP.
And what did you play there at Ouachita?
I was an offensive lineman.
Offensive lineman. Okay, so just pretty much in the first 4 or 5 years of your career, you've kind of been all over the offense and got some exposure, and then played and did a little defensive line. How important was that in the totality of things to be able to just get out your comfort zone and really, have to go learn other positions?
Well, no doubt about it. I think when Coach Parker told me I was going to the defensive line, I was pretty shook. My first year of coaching, I'd been on the offensive line. The greatest thing that ever happened to me in my career. The game starts up front, an O-line, D-line, and, I'm very fortunate to be under some great coaches and also have a chance to coach some great players in those positions as well. I still remember, the right tackle at UTEP was Jeff Grimes, when I was coaching tight ends and tackles. So I'm sitting here thinking about guys that I've crossed over with and, a defensive lineman that I got a chance to coach, Tim Edwards, as a GA. Tim Edwards was a phenomenal player and has been a great coach in our profession as well. So, being around those people that really just made me a better coach and starting with the offensive line has been great too. And then, since then I've coached every position on offense at some time in my career, even as head coach, because as head coach, especially at Division II level, you're going to fill in where you got to fill in. Right. You got to do what you got to do. So, it's helped me in my career to start up front and be around those great coaches and players.
And so we kind of mentioned UTEP here a little bit. In 89, heading in 1990, you get the opportunity to go to UTEP. Man, you're a relatively young coach at this point in time. I'm looking at my math, 26, 27 years old in a profession. Yep. You're, just started off as a dream and as a sophomore at that FCA event. Now all of a sudden you're 27, you're a full-time FBS position coach. How did that job opportunity arise, and how did you get selected as such a young coach?
Well, the athletic director at Delta State was a guy by the name of Brad Hovius. He's been a great AD. He's been at Rice, UTEP, Delta State. He's been in a lot of places. And I know Coach Lee was looking for a young coach that was hungry and ready to go, and a guy that would look for work, and also a guy that had worked with Fellowship Christian Athletes. He was looking for a coach that wouldn't be embarrassed about leading the huddle, wouldn't be embarrassed about being open about their faith. And, I think those two things came together, and, I think it's divine intervention. I think the Lord puts those things together for you. And I feel like the connection with FCA, I feel like the connection with Dr. Hovius got me a chance to interview with David at UTEP, and things fell into place from that point.
Yeah. Well, obviously anybody can kind of look at your career. 1999, man, I was still in high school. You've been a head coach for that long. You know what I'm saying? So they see the success, they see all the good stuff. But just as a young coach, getting these big opportunities. I mean, we're going to hop to Delta State in 93 when you get your first head coaching job at such a young age. I mean, what are some of the nerves, that I know you had to have to some degree, some nervousness, some, just maybe not feeling prepared enough. But what were some of the things that you experienced as a young full-time coach at an FBS program and as a young head coach at both programs you've had the opportunity to lead?
Well, starting with that experience at UTEP, I mean, I just, again, was surrounded with great coaches. I mean, some of the defensive coordinators and offensive coordinators, I worked for a guy named David Culley, that was the offensive coordinator at UTEP when I was there. And David's a tremendous coach. And David just had a way to build confidence in his coaches. And I'll always be indebted to David Culley, the time he spent with me, the way he just exuberated confidence and really gave you that kind of confidence as well. And David Lee did the same thing. So, I would say first, I've been around some great mentors that really have helped me develop who I am. And, David Kelly used to say all the time, guys, don't try to be me, try to be you. Okay. I want you inside my philosophy, but be who you are. And, so being around guys like that probably had a lot to do with that. And then I think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about, going to Delta State. I think I was 28 when I got that job at Delta State. And boy, I really was not confident. I was trying to sell myself as confident, right. But there's so many things you're thinking. Do I remember? Do I know what to do? Do I really know how to run a program, not just coach a position? Do I really know how to instill discipline in a football team and build character and all these things you're trying to do? So in some ways probably wasn't ready. But, it's like I tell people all the time when I recommend these young guys for jobs, you got to give somebody a chance.
Yep.
I was very fortunate that I got that opportunity. If you don't get the opportunity, you never know. So, I got the opportunity to do that. We worked through some very difficult years, but we ended up having a lot of success at Delta State that we're very proud of. And again, everything I tell you, I can really see the Lord's hand in my own testimony and the coaches around me and the players as well. And very thankful for that and that testimony as well.
Absolutely. So in 93, and I'm going to ask this question. No, I'm not a naysayer. Obviously, you've had the success, so you've proven yourself right. But
yeah,
in 93, you hadn't coordinated. You're 28 years old. You know what I'm saying? You don't have a ton of experience in regards to, just kind of really been around the industry. You only had the 2 years as a full-time coach there at Delta State. In 93, how on earth do you get hired for that job? I mean, as I look at it, that's kind of a question that pops out for me.
Yeah, I really don't know. I'll be honest with you. But when I look back on it, I called plays in 89 for Don Skelton. He was the head coach. I was not named the offensive coordinator, but I really was the play caller in 89.
Okay.
We had a lot of success that year. And so I thought I was prepared from that standpoint. But, even the Delta State job, people don't know this. I mean, I really came in second for the Delta State job. And I tell coaches all the time, you can't worry about that. I went back to Dallas. I was recruiting Dallas, and they told me I didn't get the job. I was on the interview, didn't get the job. I went back to Dallas. I'm in recruiting in Dallas. They call me back in 2 days and say, hey, the number one's not taking it. We're ready to go to 2 and 3. And this 2 was ready. I knew I wanted to be a head football coach, and I wanted to bite it off and give it a try. So, I wasn't their first choice. And I think that's motivating too,
sure.
to know that they wanted somebody with more experience.
Yeah.
They wanted somebody that maybe had some things that I didn't have. So I had a lot to prove. And, what a great time in my coaching career to get that opportunity to do that, even though, I was second.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, we're going to get to Delta State here a little bit, and this question is about Delta State as a whole. As I've done this podcast over the years, man, I found some, you talk to 400 coaches or so, and you realize that, man, Western Kentucky offensive coaches, man, it's been a good breeding spot for that. University of Houston offensive football, the Ohio, all the MAC schools, just all the great coaches that kind of went through there. And as Delta State was one of these schools that kind of continuously pop up with just these high-quality coaches that had some type of stop there. Why is that place so special?
Well, it really is an unbelievable stop for coaches. I mean, there's been such great coaches there in the past. They have a rich tradition right there in athletics in general, and it's just a good place. And Mississippi is a great place to recruit.
Yeah.
The difficulty in Mississippi, there's 14 junior colleges. It pushes you into more junior college recruiting than a lot of people are used to.
Yeah.
But it's a wonderful state for football, high school football, college football, and I think the ingredients are there to be successful. Really, at all the schools in Mississippi,
Amen.
But especially Delta State. And at the time there were only 2 Division II schools in Mississippi, and that was Mississippi College and Delta State. Mississippi College had been very, very successful. And we were in fact, they had won the national championship in 89. Kind of going back to that, we beat them in 89 and they won the national championship.
Oh, wow.
So, we always say Mississippi College was number 1 in the nation, but number 2 in Mississippi. We always loved saying that back in the day. But no, just a special place. A lot of great players have come through there. And I think the quality of players that have been through there have really made some great coaches as well.
That's right. Now, getting back to it, 28, you kind of got a little chip on your shoulder a little bit, been a second guy. I got something to improve. I guess I say it like that a little bit more. And talk to me about the early stages of just being a young coach, trying to figure this thing out, budgets, recruiting rules, just all the stuff that kind of goes into it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, ultra prepared from UTEP, how to run a program, what that should look like. It didn't matter what the level is. These are the things you do, so I felt like I was well prepared and I was ready to run the program. And then, I made some critical GA hires, to be quite honest with you, at Delta State that were very beneficial. Back then, we may have had 4 or 5 full-time coaches. You know, I hired a guy by the name of Jay Hobson as a GA and John Darnell, who'd been the quarterback at Ole Miss. And, you know, we're really all about the same age, to be honest with you. And we just kind of built the program together. You know, Steve Carter, I think he's the D-line coach at North Alabama now, and Darren Herkamp. I mean, just some quality guys that, you know, we kind of did it together. To say that I did it or I was the point really is not true. I had some good experience around me, some great GAs, and a good place to work at Delta to get that first opportunity.
Yeah. And so the hiring process, you know, you mentioned those coaches, and I do want to get to that at some point when you're a head coach from 93 till now. You've built a heck of a tree yourself, but early on, going through the hiring process, trying to find the right guys to put in the building, because that's crucial to find success. You got to have the right guys in the building, which I know you know that. You know, what was that process like to, you know, make those first couple hires? What was how did you interview them? How did you make sure they fit the culture that you wanted to build?
Well, I'll never forget my interview at UTEP with David Lee. You know, I was ready to get on the board and draw up the counter and talk about the passing game and all those kind of things. And, man, the first hour that we sat there and talked, it was more about faith. It was more about family. You know, why are you in coaching? What impact do you want to make? And, you know, so I learned from David that, you know, you hire the man first, you know, not the coach. And so I think that was critical for me in learning that lesson. And then, you know, naturally the fundamentals of the game, those things are important too. And, you know, how people work. You know, I say this about players all the time. You know, you are what you do over and over and over. If you're a great practice guy, you're probably going to be a pretty good game guy. So I'm looking for a guy that loves to practice, you know, a coach that loves to go to practice every day, has great energy, has a good motor. You know, we expect that from players and we expect that from our coaches. And, you know, again, you know, it takes 21 days to build a habit. So, you know, if you can be that energy guy and you can bring it every day, you've got a chance to be a good coach. So, you know, looking for that, a guy, maybe a guy of faith, maybe a guy, you know, family's important. And then a guy that really loves kids and loves the game, loves the profession.
You know, I can only imagine the growth that happened from 93 to 98 as a head coach. Well, just stepping back away from it, kind of looking at your career, what was the biggest leap of growth that you made in that time frame?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I quit taking things so personal. You know, 90, 93, 94, 95, I felt like everybody was, you know, really out to get me or attacking me or trying to get rid of me, but in things like that. And when I finally flipped that switch and said, hey, they love the program. They want what I want. They may have a different attitude about it, and they're not inside the field house. They don't know how hard we're working and all those things. So some of the things they're saying out of love, even though it sounds vicious. Yeah. So I had to change my thinking about, you know, what people say, and you got to put on that thick skin in this profession and move on through it and just understand that they love the program too. They may have a different attitude, you know, of why you do things. But, you know, when I quit worrying about the outside and just kept my focus on the inside, being more intentional about players, more intentional about what we do, you know, I really saw us get better and really learning how to recruit again in Division II, because I'd been out of it for 3 or 4 years. I think that was critical too.
Yeah. In the state of Mississippi, obviously, and I say this, I coached at Millsaps College, got a little experience there in Jackson, Mississippi, and then I went over to Louisiana Monroe. That was my recruiting area for 5 years. And probably one of the most disheartening things I had in my coaching career was at times I would lose a kid that said, I want to go to a JC and maybe see if I can find a better spot than this Division I opportunity I'm presenting. And so I know it comes with some difficulties there in Mississippi just because of those JCs provide that, maybe an extra opportunity for those guys to get re-recruited down the road. So how did you approach it as a Division II program?
It's amazing you're bringing that up, you know, and probably the biggest difficulty for any coach going into Mississippi is realizing just what you did. I mean, if you're going in there to battle the junior colleges, you're not going to be successful. Yeah. You know, it's just not going to happen. Now, you're going to recruit some of the same kids and going to win some and lose some, but you've got to find a way to work together with those guys. They're trying to make a living too. They play a great brand of football.
Absolutely.
And,
yeah.
You need each other, but, there's a learning curve there that you just mentioned. You've got to understand it. You've got to kind of live through it to understand what you and I are talking about to coach in the state, because, man, there's some real recruiting wars between the colleges and the junior colleges. And again, it's not, I'm not saying it like it's a vicious thing or a problem.
Yeah.
It's more of a learning curve to adapt to a state where football has that many college opportunities.
Yeah, no doubt about it. That's well said, Coach. And so in 98, Gulf South Coach of the Year, conference champs, just kind of built this thing up. And then you get an awesome call to kind of return back to your alma mater in 1999. What was that call like? And what went down to lead to you taking that job?
Well, I tell you what, it was miserable. In fact, I turned the job down 3 times. They tried to hire Fitz Hill. They tried to hire Steve Roberts, and they tried to hire me. And, I don't think any of the 3 wanted the job, not because it's not a great place. It is a great place, but it had gone down and knew that it was uphill. And I was at a great place. I don't know if you know this, but Delta State, 3 semesters after we leave, they win the national championship. They had a lot of great players, and Steve Campbell did a tremendous job. He followed me in there, and he had been assistant coach at Delta too. So, Steve gets a lot of credit for that and did a great job there. But it was a tough place to leave, because we had recruited, and we recruited some great players. And again, it's relational to me. So, leaving those kids was one of the most difficult things. But I don't know. After a couple of months of going back and forth, I just felt a calling to go back and help rebuild the program at Ouachita. And I knew that it had a great potential. And, that faith-based education, I felt like is something that I wanted to be a part of. And it was the right move for me and my family at the time. But I will always be indebted to Delta State and what they did for me, and hopefully what I did for them, not just me, but the coaching staff as well, for the first Gulf South Conference championship in their history and things like that. We're very proud of that. We can put our name with that, but no, we just felt like this was probably where we needed to be and what we needed to do. Now, did I know I was going to be here this long? No, I did not.
That's right.
That was not the plan, but man, God's plan is always bigger than my plan, and it's been good.
That's right. That's right. Well, to find somebody with quick math, 26 years at a middle school. I mean, that would be a great feat to be, let alone to do it at college, especially as volatile as the profession can be at times. Just in general, what do you credit to being able to have that longevity? Not just necessarily, building a good program, having good people around you, but more your motivation, to stick around a program for that long in your alma mater and just continue to, lay those bricks and get better every year.
Yeah, well, those first 5 to 6, 7 years, they were tough. We were underfunded scholarship wise, and had facility issues and things like that. And you can sit there and start making excuses about all that, or you can get motivated. And finally, I quit making excuses, because I had been spoiled a little bit at UTEP and then at Delta State to go in and get in this situation. The first few years, I was a little bit, woe is me. What have I gotten myself into? And then I again had to flip that switch through the Lord's help and just say, hey, I'm here for a reason. I'm going to coach, and I'm going to help build these kids and who they are and keep the focus. It's kind of crazy. We keep going back to FCA. I went to an FCA event, and Rocky Felker was speaking, and Rocky Felker was talking about, he'd been fired at Mississippi State and all the things that happened to Coach Felker. And he said, if I had one regret, it would be that, I wish I would have invested more in the players. And he talked about what he did with the rest of his career. I think he was in Arkansas or somewhere at the time he was speaking at this event. And he was just talking about the investment with the players, bringing them over to eat, investing in those guys, really teaching them what it meant to be a family. And it really hit home with me. And we really tried to instill that at Ouachita and really focus more on the players and trying to build facilities than we did the record, and then things started coming together. We started building scholarship funds. We started, we have Cliff Harris Stadium now, all these things have come about. but it's through a lot of hard work and a lot of dedicated people that those things have happened. But it was also very motivating, to be really put back in my place, really, in some ways, and say, hey, you're not the coach of everything. You better stick to the fundamentals of life and coaching, and keep working through this thing, and quit worrying about yourself and your personal record.
Yeah, Coach, I think that's really awesome that in Delta State, although you had a ton of success, you talked about this epiphany that you had a little bit where it was like, everybody's not attacking me. Let me stop taking stuff personal. And then you have this epiphany, although maybe sitting in that FCA meeting and kept kind of springboarded it. I've said this on the podcast 100 times, the hardest thing I think it is for us to do as coaches who, we have some ego about us, is to look in the mirror and maybe have tough conversations and come to those realizations and those epiphanies. Like, I don't know if there's advice to it. It sounds like, obviously you had a little motivation that put you there, but how important is that, as a coach who's done it for 26 years after every season, kind of look in the mirror and say, man, what can we do better? What can I do better? What can I do better to help these kids in the program or, the community, whatever. How can we help our young coaches kind of figure that part of it out? Because I do think it's difficult.
It is, because and naturally it is, because we're graded on wins and losses. So, that's what we have to look at. And naturally, to keep your platform, you got to win some football games. So I understand, but, the older I've gotten in this thing and the more experience I've gotten in the profession, I would say this: when you invest on that other side, and all the way from service-oriented projects to investing in the players to all those things, and you balance that out a little bit with football and fundamentals, I think that grows the program. Mm-hmm. I'll be completely honest with you. I think when it's all football, I think you get in a danger zone of losing the guys. Yeah. And, I think that if I would have known that a little earlier in my career, it probably would have helped me. But, the more balanced attack we take and approach we take, I think the better our football team is. So if I had advice for guys, number one, I'd say be yourself. But number two, I would say make an investment in life skills and what these guys really are trying to become, more than just your own personal record. And it's hard. It's hard not to look at your own personal self, and we all do it. But I think you got to have balance in that approach.
Amen. Coach, I appreciate you sharing that. Kind of looking at your timeline there at Ouachita Baptist, in 2011, you led Ouachita to the first conference title in over 25 years. And then kind of since then, it's been, that thing has been running 6 more conference championships, appearances in the playoff. You talk about those first couple years, from 99, kind of where you realize kind of where you needed to be. What happened in 2011 for that to kind of be, I'm sure what's the old saying is 15 minutes of fame. It took like 10 years of success. Obviously having that culminating moment in 2011, kind of win that first conference championship, took a long time coming. But what was that year like to kind of just get everything kind of rolling in the right direction?
Well, that's a great question as well, because it's really before 2011 for us. I mean, we were in the Gulf South Conference before we went into the Great American. So I was playing in the conference that I had left. I mean, we were playing Valdosta, North Alabama, Delta State. Yeah. We were playing in that league at the time. And Ouachita had been at NAIA in 1997. So you're looking at a school that's growing in a bunch of different ways. And really what happened to us those 2 or 3 years before 2011, so like 2008 through 2011 right there, you can go back and fact check me, but I'm pretty sure we beat Valdosta. We beat North Alabama. They were number 1 in the country. Terry Bowden was there. I talked about Valdosta, West Georgia. I mean, we were able to beat these schools. Now, we didn't beat them all in the same year every time, but we were getting to 500, 600 against really good football teams that helped us and my administration, too, realize, hey, if you're going to play college football in Division II, and you want to be among the best, some of these schools we just talked about, you got to bring it in other areas than just a few kids. You got to invest in scholarships and things around the program. So the best thing that ever happened to Ouachita was being in the Gulf South and us having that little bit of taste of success. Yeah. I mean, our program is built on kids that got this thing to 5 and 5. Okay, 6 and 5. I mean, Julio Pruitt played for the Dolphins for 5 years. played wide receiver for me in 2008. Ended up making an NFL career. Had a great career. Had a great breakout year. Was on ESPN highlights in 2008. Things like that start happening to the program. All of a sudden, we get a little bit of exposure.
Coach, I want to brag on you real quick here. You 7-time Great American Conference champ, 7-time conference coach of the year, 5 times AFCA Regional Coach of the Year, 6-time NCAA Division II playoffs, 162 and 103 overall record at OBU, 288 all-conference selections, 47 All-Americans, tied with Buddy Benson at OBU, all-time winningest coach, which is awesome. I know that's who you played for there at OBU. And then 2023 AFCA president. Just if you stopped it all right there, I mean, what a heck of a career, right? And you still alive and kicking like no other. And I saw this, that you had the awesome opportunity here in April to be inducted to the Arkansas Sports Hall of Fame. It's hard to stop and smell the roses in this profession. It just is. I mean, it's the next recruit, next play, next issue that you got in the building that you got to go put the fire out. I mean, how awesome has it been to just be able to step in this thing, especially as, kind of having that epiphany as a sophomore in college at that FCA event at Northwestern, to be able to kind of look at it now and be like, man, I've impacted a lot of lives, not just from a player perspective, but I mean, your tree. I mean, I don't know how many guys I've had on the podcast that had some type of stop with you at Delta State or at Ouachita Baptist. I mean, what does that mean to you to be able to have such a, just a great career at this point in time in your life?
Well, you mentioned that tree, and that tree is the only reason that I sit here now, because it's again, and I'm not trying to make light of what I've done, but it's more about the team effort for me. I mean, there's no way that Todd Knight goes in the Arkansas Sports Hall of Fame if I don't have a bunch of dedicated players and coaches around me for years and years and years. And what I've always tried to do is just have an environment that those guys could grow, give those guys ownership in the program and from players and coaches, and have an environment that they love to work in. And, that is my number one job, is to create an environment for players and coaches to thrive, and so I've been very fortunate, and, I keep going back to my faith and the Lord. I just, I'm so thankful that, first of all, He saved me at 14 years old, and, that He's followed me through my career. And I'm thankful too for those tough years. I'm thankful for those down years. When you look back at it, there's no way that you can appreciate what we're doing now if we hadn't been through what we went through. And at the time, I would never have said that. But now, now I look back and I am so thankful for the stretching and the toughness that we had to go through to get to where we are. We've never been given anything, and I'm appreciative now that we weren't. And again, my testimony is a testimony of relationships and people, that none of these things happen to me without great people. I've got a coach here at Ouachita who's been with me since 1994, Jay Derby, offensive coordinator. What a great coordinator. Coach Thompson just got the Arkansas Tech job and was with me, and his brother played for me at Delta State, and he was sitting on the couch when I home visited him, and then he was my DC, So, having these guys through all the years that have really made me look probably a lot better than I am, it's probably been the difference.
Amen, Coach. Well, man, super excited. I know you came down when the board came to visit us here. I think it was last year, maybe the year before. I don't know if you remember, right across the street from us here at the AFCA is the Texas Sports Hall of Fame. And just over the years, I've had the opportunity to see, Robert Griffin walk into that building, David Robinson, all these Nolan Ryan. I mean, these huge players. And just me look over there and say, man, that'd be pretty cool to be a part of that. You get to do that in Arkansas, man. That's big time. So congrats to you on that. One of the things I mentioned was that in 2023, you were the AFCA president, obviously hugely involved on the board. Why has the AFCA been so important to you throughout your career? And then why should people who are not involved with the AFCA do so?
Well, there's not another professional organization to me like the American Football Coach Association. From education to helping coaches grow, to making the game safer, to making college football, and not just college football, but all of football better. starts with the American Football Coaches Association, and the way that thing has grown and what you guys have done with it is pretty cool to see. And to be a small part of that, the relational part of that, again, to be on the board for 12 years and see how some of the best in college football at the top levels, how those guys take their university cap off and really try to do what's best for college football and football in general, not just them and their school, has been incredible. And then to have the vote of confidence from your peers to be in front of that thing as the president is really, I think about it now and I think, my goodness, it's kind of like you said a while ago, when you look back and I don't know that I really enjoy everything like I should have, because I'm sitting here today trying to get ready for spring ball. You know how it is, and you're so busy, you don't have time to stop and think about it. But the AFCA has been impactful, great coaches, great leadership from inside the organization, and I just really appreciate so much what you and others have done through the AFCA.
Well, I appreciate that, Coach. Before I let you go here, I know this is not something that you're new to here, but as I mentioned, this for the 5th time, you were voted the Regional Coach of the Year. What does that mean to you? It's voted on by your peers. These are coaches that kind of seen your body of work and respect what you've done with that program. What does that mean to you to receive that?
Well, it means everything, because, it's one thing to get some type of award that, maybe media or somebody like that could bestow on you. But when you're voted on something by your AFCA membership, I mean, that's big time in my mind. That's a matter of respect. And man, I'm so thankful that I've been a part of AFCA, and thankful that I've been able to be a Regional Coach of the Year again, because again, that's your peers that vote on that, and that probably means more than anything else that I could ever accept. And when I do get one of those awards, or have in the past, I really still feel like that's a team award for us, and an award for our coaches. I know, again, going back to Coach Thompson, he was the defensive assistant coach of the year this year. And again, if he's not the defensive assistant coach of the year, I'm probably not the regional coach of the year. So that really it comes from the bottom up. That's really how it works.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful for guys like Roy and other guys that have been around me and taught me so much. And again, thankful for the AFCA.
Yeah. And before we go here, it's so awesome, because we just recorded with him. We just released his podcast this past week, I think, and we recorded him maybe a week ago. And to hear his story and just your involvement in that story. And I know you made mention of it, his brother, and him leaving to go to Cali for a little bit and reuniting with you, man. I mean, it's beautiful to see all these puzzle pieces kind of come together, and just how impactful you were for him and how impactful he's going to go be for other people. And man, it's an awesome profession, man. And I appreciate everything that you do for us here at the AFCA, everything that you're doing for that program and just for our profession in general. Okay.
You bet. I appreciate it a bunch, and enjoyed visiting with you.
Yes, sir. All right. You have a great spring ball, man, and look forward to seeing you at the convention. Okay.
Okay. See you soon.
Sir.
CoachComm has been delivering tough headsets for tough teams for more than 31 years. It's why 97% of FBS teams and thousands of high schools across the country rely on CoachComm. Get the best for your team. Visit CoachComm.com for more info.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. If you'd like to learn more about this week's episode, head over to AFCA.com. There, you can access every episode and find corresponding show notes. Remember, you can catch every episode of Inside the Headset presented by CoachComm on wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. While you're there, we'd love for you to take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Your feedback helps us improve and grow. Keep up with the latest news by following us on social media. Connect with us at Inside the Headset, and remember to tag us when you share your favorite episodes. For more updates on all things AFCA, be sure to follow the @WeAreAFCA social media accounts. If you're not a part of the AFCA community yet, Visit AFCA.com to join thousands of NFL, college, and high school coaches nationwide and across the globe. Elevate your coaching game with an AFCA membership. You'll gain exclusive access to the annual AFCA convention, magazine, digital library, and AFCA Insider email. Stay up to date with the latest stories and news on the AFCA website. More than just a convention, the AFCA offers continuous education, guidance, networking, and more. Celebrate the past and shape the future with the AFCA. It's about fostering exceptional coaches who create outstanding teams and even better individuals. Invest in your skills and make a lasting impact today by engaging with the AFCA. Your journey starts here.